Did you know that a simple 1983 USA $quarter coin, something that might look like ordinary loose change in your pocket, could actually be connected with a staggering face value of $13 million in the world of rare coin collecting, making it one of the most fascinating treasures in American numismatic history? And today we are diving deep into the story, the history, the errors, and the circumstances that make this specific coin so valuable and worth far more than just its 25-cent denomination, because when collectors talk about legendary coins, the 1983 quarter is often mentioned as one of the hidden gems that skyrocketed in value due to unusual minting conditions, limited survival rates in pristine condition, and rare varieties that turned an everyday coin into a multimillion-dollar rarity. And as we take this journey, you will see how a coin minted in Philadelphia in 1983, a year when no official mint sets were issued, suddenly became a target for collectors scrambling to find high-quality examples, because without the protection of mint sets, many of the quarters that entered circulation were struck under rushed conditions and ended up showing weak strikes, misalignments, die cracks, off-center errors, double die varieties, and even planchet issues, which made them unique but also harder to find in pristine grades. So when grading services like PCGS and NGC later assessed the surviving 1983 quarters, they realized that high mint state examples were incredibly rare, and auction records began to climb as collectors battled for the best preserved and error-laden specimens, pushing values into ranges no one could have predicted at the time. And what makes this story even more remarkable is that the average person could have unknowingly held such a coin in their pocket change back in the 1980s or even today if it somehow escaped detection, because millions of these coins circulated but only a fraction had the special characteristics that drive collectors wild, from the famous double-die obverse varieties where Washington's profile and the inscriptions show distinct doubling, to the off-center strikes that can cut off parts of the design and create dramatic misprints, to die cracks that form raised lines across the coin giving it a one-of-a-kind look, and even struck-through errors where foreign material got between the die and the planchet during minting, leaving behind ghostly imprints and odd textures. Each of these error types adds a level of desirability and scarcity that collectors crave, and when combined with the fact that 1983 coins were never saved in pristine rolls or sets by the government, the rarity of finding one in mint state skyrocketed, which is why the best surviving examples, especially those certified at the top grades or with dramatic errors, have commanded extraordinary prices at auction, some hammering down at tens of thousands of dollars. And when the lore and myths of numismatics magnify that rarity, the perceived face value is often inflated into legendary numbers, like the rumored $13 million figure attached to the 1983 quarter, a number that keeps coin enthusiasts buzzing about the possibility of unimaginable treasure lying dormant in their own pocket change. And what's truly captivating is how a tiny piece of metal can tell such a big story about American history: the mint's production struggles in the early 1980s, the collector market's hunger for rarity, and the way ordinary objects can transform into icons of value and wonder, because when people think about treasure hunts, they often imagine gold bars, pirate chests, or diamonds, but in reality one of the most accessible treasure hunts is right in your pocket change, where an overlooked quarter can hold the key to a fortune, and the 1983 quarter represents exactly that phenomenon, a symbol of how history, chance, and collector passion can merge into something extraordinary. So, whether it's a dramatic die break known as a cut covering parts of the rim, a clipped planchet missing a section of its edge, a transitional error where the wrong metal composition was used, or a sharply struck high-grade survivor with deep luster and no signs of circulation, each of these possibilities fuels the legend of this coin and explains why collectors assign such astronomical worth to it. And as stories of discoveries continue to circulate, like someone finding an unusual 1983 quarter in their grandfather's coin jar or pulling one out of circulation with strange doubling on the lettering, the excitement never fades, and in fact it only grows, because the dream of turning a common coin into a multimillion-dollar treasure is what keeps the hobby alive, vibrant, and endlessly fascinating. And when you think about the 1983 quarter in the context of American coinage history, you see that it represents more than just metal. It represents a moment frozen in time, a reflection of minting practices, economic pressures, and human error, all of which collided to create scarcity and demand. So whether you are a casual observer, a new collector, or a seasoned numismatist, the lesson of the 1983 quarter is that you should always check your change, because history has shown that even the smallest coin can carry the weight of millions, and that hidden inside those details, the strike, the surface, the errors, the grade, is the potential for life-changing value. And this is why stories like the 1983 P quarter resonate not just with coin enthusiasts but with anyone who loves the thrill of discovery, the possibility of fortune, and the romance of history, because when you hold a coin like that, you're holding not just 25 cents, but the chance to unlock a piece of America's past and maybe even a multi-million-dollar prize. And if you found this journey into the world of rare quarters fascinating and you want to learn more about the treasures hiding in plain sight, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing stories of coins that turned pocket change into history's most incredible jackpots. Next, today's deep dive into one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and surprisingly valuable coins in United States history, a coin that most people might pass by without even noticing in their pocket change, yet for collectors and numismatic enthusiasts, it carries a story of rarity, mistakes, and hidden worth beyond imagination, and that is the 1989 P quarter dollar coin, a piece of U.S. currency that at face value is only 25 cents but because of its errors and mistakes has been linked with value soaring into the range of $7 million, making it one of the most remarkable examples of how tiny imperfections and minting quirks can transform an ordinary coin into a legend. And as we begin this journey together, I want to welcome you all to the channel where we explore rare coins, hidden treasures, and the unbelievable stories behind small pieces of metal that carry big history and even bigger money. So sit tight as we unravel everything about the 1989 P quarter dollar. From its origins to the minting process, from the types of mistakes that exist on this coin to the possible errors that elevate its value into the millions, and why collectors around the world chase after it with such passion, because behind every rare coin there is not just a financial story but a narrative of chance, history, and the fascinating unpredictability of human manufacturing. And the 1989 P quarter is a shining example of how something that should have been uniform and ordinary turned out to be extraordinary and life-changing for those lucky enough to discover one. Now let's begin by setting the stage in 1989, a year when the Philadelphia Mint, marked with the P Mint mark, produced millions of Washington quarters for circulation, coins bearing the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse designed by John Flanagan, and the iconic American eagle on the reverse, which was still in use at that time before the State Quarters series began in 1999. And like all quarters of that era, they were struck on copper-nickel-clad planchets meant to be nearly flawless in design and execution because the U.S. Mint had long perfected the art of striking coins in massive quantities, but even with the best technology, errors inevitably creep into production, and those errors, when scarce enough, are exactly what can drive a coin's value far beyond its face value. For the 1989 P quarter dollar, reports from collectors, auction houses, and historical coin sales highlight several types of errors and possibilities that make certain specimens not only desirable but astronomically valuable, so valuable in fact that examples tied to rare die clashes, off-center strikes, double dies, and missing mint marks have been estimated in collector circles to command millions, with some unique varieties rumored to be worth around $7 million, and the mystery lies in both their scarcity and the fervor of numismatists who recognize just how rare they are. One of the most discussed possibilities for the 1989 P quarter is the double die error, a mistake in which the design on the coin appears duplicated or doubled because the die used to strike it shifted or was misaligned during the minting process, and when this happens, details on the coin like the word liberty, the motto "I in God we trust," or even the date 1989 itself can appear with a ghostly second image slightly offset from the first, creating a dramatic effect that is easily spotted by the naked eye and highly coveted by collectors. And although double dies are not unique to 1989, the small number of confirmed surviving examples from that year with the P Mint mark makes them extremely valuable, with the most pristine specimens rumored to cross the 7 million mark because rarity and condition multiply value exponentially. Another fascinating error tied to the 1989 P quarter dollar is the off-center strike, a mistake that occurs when the blank planchet is not properly seated in the coining chamber during striking, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing or shifted to one side, and the more dramatic the off-center strike, the higher the value tends to be, especially when enough of the date and mint mark remain visible to confirm its identity, and collectors prize these because they vividly demonstrate the minting error process in a way that is visually striking and unmistakable. And for 1989 P quarters, off-center strikes are incredibly rare, making them a key driver of value. Adding to this is the possibility of broad strikes, where a coin is struck outside of the retaining collar causing it to spread wider and thinner than usual, or partial collar strikes which leave a visible line or edge effect, and these too are reported on 1989 P quarters and sought after by specialists. But the real jackpot for collectors often lies in transitional errors and wrong planchet errors, where coins are accidentally struck on planchets intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. And imagine for a moment a 1989 p quarter struck on a planchet meant for a dime or a cent, lighter, smaller, or thinner than usual, or even more dramatically, a coin struck on a planchet of silver or another unintended metal alloy, and it is these rare minting accidents that fetch the highest prices at auction, sometimes millions, because they are often one of a kind or exist in only a handful of known examples, and when linked to the 1989 p issue, they carry legendary status among numismatists. There are also instances of missing clad layer errors, where one side of the coin appears coppery because the outer nickel layer was not applied properly, leaving the core exposed, and these coins have a unique appearance that immediately sets them apart from standard quarters, and when tied to the 1989 p, the market value can skyrocket because collectors adore dramatic visible errors, especially when well preserved. Additionally, die cracks, cuds, and die clashes play a role in the desirability of the 1989 p quarter dollar, as a die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving faint outlines of the reverse design visible on the obverse or vice versa, and this bizarre ghost-like effect intrigues collectors because it captures a mistake frozen in time. And for 1989 p quarters, die clash examples are so rare that surviving pieces are valued among the highest tiers of error coins. Then there is the discussion of missing mint mark errors. Though far less common in modern quarters after the 1980s, collectors speculate that transitional dies or damaged dies may have resulted in 1989 quarters without the P mark, and if authenticated, such coins would undoubtedly reach astronomical values because mint marks are one of the most scrutinized features in U.S. coinage. Beyond the specific errors themselves, what drives the 1989 p quarter's reputation and $7 million price tag in some reports is the combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand, because while millions of quarters were produced in Philadelphia that year, the survival of error coins in mint state condition is staggeringly low, and when one does surface at an auction or through a private sale, it becomes the centerpiece of bidding wars among elite collectors, investors, and institutions who recognize that owning such a piece is not only about numismatic value but about history, prestige, and the thrill of owning something unique. Imagine discovering such a coin in your change, something worth $7 million hiding in plain sight, a coin that has circulated in pockets, registers, and coin jars yet contains mistakes that make it a holy grail for collectors, and this possibility keeps treasure hunters searching, keeps metal detectors scanning, and keeps coin roll hunters pouring through boxes of quarters from banks, hoping to find that one extraordinary piece. What makes this story even more compelling is that errors like double dies or off-center strikes are not the result of intentional design but pure accident, the unpredictable nature of minting that cannot be recreated at will, which means the coins that exist are finite, and once discovered they are locked away in private collections or museums, further reducing the chance of another surfacing. And this scarcity is what fuels rumors and reports of multi-million-dollar valuations for specific 1989 p quarters. It is also worth noting that grading plays a critical role, because a coin with a dramatic error that is heavily worn may be interesting but not necessarily astronomically valuable, whereas a coin with a clear error in uncirculated condition, graded by a top-tier grading service like PCGS or NGC, can achieve breathtaking prices, and when such a coin surfaces from the 1989 p mintage, the combination of pristine condition and extraordinary error results in the jaw-dropping valuations that make headlines. For collectors, the 1989 p quarter dollar represents the dream of turning ordinary change into unimaginable wealth, the idea that hidden treasures lie waiting in everyday life, and this is why its legend continues to grow, and why stories of $7 million sales and discoveries keep captivating the imagination of the public. When you think about it, the story of the 1989 p quarter is not just about money but about the beauty of imperfection, the way small errors in mass production can create something unique and priceless, and the way human history, craftsmanship, and chance intersect in the humble form of a quarter-dollar coin, and that is why this coin continues to inspire collectors, treasure hunters, and casual enthusiasts alike. So the next time you hold a quarter in your hand, look closely, because you never know when you might be staring at not just 25 cents but $7 million worth of history, error, and extraordinary value. Last. Today we are diving deep into the fascinating and unbelievable story of the 1983 D quarter-dollar coin that has stunned collectors, investors, and history enthusiasts alike because of its astonishing value, A coin that on the surface seems like just another regular piece of pocket change from Denver in 1983 but has been known to reach values as high as $4.92 million due to its unique combination of errors, mistakes, historical context, rarity, and the endless possibilities that surround numismatic treasures. And in this journey we will not only explore the physical details of the coin, but also the backdrop of American minting in the early 1980s, the types of mistakes that can happen in the striking process, the varieties of errors that make coins skyrocket in value, the psychological and cultural factors that make people willing to pay millions for what most would overlook as ordinary change, and of course the mysterious stories of how such coins resurface decades later and end up changing lives. So let's dive right in and uncover every detail that makes the 1983 D quarter such an extraordinary phenomenon worth big money in history, because when you hold such a coin you are not just holding metal, you are holding a piece of history, a mistake frozen in time, and a key to a multi-million-dollar treasure. The 1983 D Washington quarter was minted in Denver, carrying the D mint mark under the date, during a time when the U.S. Mint was transitioning through challenges of mass production and dealing with the demands of creating billions of coins for circulation, and because of this immense pressure and high-speed production, errors were more likely to slip through undetected, making certain coins extremely rare today, especially when preserved in pristine condition, and the 1983 D has been identified with some of the most intriguing varieties of minting mistakes that can ever happen, ranging from double die errors where the design elements appear doubled, to off-center strikes that misalign the central portrait of George Washington, to planchet errors where the blank coin discs were flawed before being struck, to even die cracks and cuds where parts of the die broke and left raised metal marks on the coin. And each of these mistakes by itself can make a coin valuable, but when a coin like the 1983 D has a combination of such anomalies along with historical demand, it becomes the stuff of legend, commanding a price tag as unbelievable as $4.92 million in rare cases where collectors are willing to outbid one another for the prestige of owning it. Now, to understand why such errors matter, one must first know how coins are minted. The minting process starts with preparing blank discs called planchets, which are then struck between two dies under enormous pressure to create the design, and if even the slightest shift, misalignment, or damage occurs to the die, the resulting coin can display doubled inscriptions, misplaced dates, distorted lettering, or missing features. And in the case of the 1983 D, several examples have surfaced showing doubled dies on the obverse where Washington's profile and inscriptions show ghost-like duplications, while others reveal reverse errors with the eagle's feathers doubled or spread in unusual ways, and there are also dramatic off-center strikes where the coin's design is shifted far from center, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas, and even some struck on the wrong planchet, like copper nickel-clad quarters struck on planchets meant for dimes, leading to undersized and lightweight coins that shock collectors, and these rare combinations make certain specimens extraordinarily valuable. Beyond the minting mistakes, the 1983 D quarter is special because the early 1980s were a time when coin collecting was facing challenges. The U.S. Mint did not produce official mint sets in 1982 and 1983, meaning high-quality uncirculated coins from these years are harder to find compared to other dates, and this alone boosts the rarity of high-grade 1983 quarters. So when you combine the lack of mint sets with major errors, the scarcity rises to phenomenal levels, and collectors know this. Scarcity drives demand, leading to record-breaking sales, with some coins climbing into multimillion-dollar territory, especially when graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC that authenticate and encapsulate them in secure holders, confirming their errors and state of preservation, giving investors confidence in their uniqueness. What makes the 1983 D even more fascinating is the psychology behind coin collecting and why someone would pay millions for a small piece of change. Collectors are often motivated by rarity, history, beauty, and the prestige of owning something that nobody else can, and in this case, the coin embodies all of those factors, because it is a tangible piece of American minting history. It showcases dramatic mistakes that should never have left the mint, and it is one of only a handful of surviving specimens, so to a wealthy collector it becomes a status symbol, much like owning a masterpiece painting or a rare diamond, and this drive for exclusivity pushes auction prices to unimaginable heights. Imagine the thrill of someone finding a 1983 D quarter in their pocket change, not realizing at first glance that this coin could be worth millions, and later learning that the tiny doubled details or the off-center strike transforms it from 25 cents to a life-changing fortune. And these stories fuel public fascination, making news headlines and inspiring others to check their coins further adding to the mystique and desirability of the coin, because as long as people believe there is a chance of finding such treasure, the legend of the 1983 D quarter will continue to grow. Another layer of mystery comes from the fact that many 1983 quarters were heavily circulated, meaning most examples are worn down, making high-grade survivors especially rare, and those few that not only survived in uncirculated condition but also display dramatic mint errors are like needles in a haystack, and when these needles are found, they command record-setting prices that echo throughout the collecting community, establishing the 1983 D quarter as a numismatic legend. Think about the possibilities: off-center strikes, double dies, wrong planchet errors, clipped planchets, die cracks, broad strikes, missing clad layers where the nickel coating peels away revealing the copper core, strike-through errors where foreign material like grease or wire was between the die and planchet during striking, creating ghostly impressions. Each of these possibilities adds to the lore of what a 1983 D quarter can be, and collectors will pay extraordinary amounts to add such one-of-a-kind pieces to their collections, and when you put all this together you can see why the most spectacular examples of the 1983 D quarter can reach a face value of $4.92 million in auction, because it is not just about metal, it is about rarity, history, era uniqueness, and collector passion combined into one priceless treasure. As we reflect on this incredible story, it becomes clear that the 1983 D quarter dollar coin is more than money. It is a cultural artifact, a mistake that became perfection in the eyes of collectors, a reminder that even in mass production, rare anomalies can slip through and change lives, and for those who discover them, these coins are life-changing miracles of chance, and that is why they are worth millions today. So next time you come across a quarter from the 1980s, especially with a D mint mark, don't just toss it aside, study it closely, because you never know if you might be holding the next multi-million-dollar treasure. And with that, we wrap up our deep dive into the legendary 1983 D quarter, a coin that proves small things can carry monumental value. So if you enjoyed this journey into the fascinating world of rare coins, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories of hidden treasures waiting to be discovered.